I was saying, y'all, Rico from StreetScores, and the Washington Commanders brought in a few players to try out. We're going to dive into some of the notable tryouts, like 2 offensive tackles that you wouldn't be too mad about starting for your team right now, especially if this was 2 years ago. These were 2 starting caliber offensive tackles that we worked out. Maybe we'll end up signing one of those guys. Again, we're going to dive into those guys, but most importantly, before we even get to those 2 towards the second half of the video, we got to dive into the playmaking wide receiver that they signed, and also a battle-proven defensive back that they also signed. So we're going to talk about 2 players that they signed, 2 other players that they worked out, and I'm also just show you the list of all of the players that worked out, but the most notable that we didn't sign were the 2 tackles that we're going to dive into the second half of this video. And there was like some sort of a small jog through practice that went down Thursday, I guess, as in August 14th. So I'm just going to combine that with the very next practice and just kind of make them one big video, because it wasn't a lot to take from it, but it was some stuff that I feel like is still noteworthy to bring up and include in whenever I do my next training camp breakdown. So if they have a practice today, Friday, August 15th, I'll just combine it with that one, because we have a lot of injury updates to give y'all and everything from that one. So stay tuned for that later on. But before we get into everything in this video, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Appreciate y'all. Man, we are down to like only, I think, like 20 something tickets available for this live Commanders King show that's going down August 24th at the Crystal City Sports Pub. Again, we will be live and in person doing a Commanders Kings live stream, and there's going to be certain things that, like, we're going to try to stream it while we're doing the live show as well for those of y'all to see through YouTube, but you really want to make sure you're there, because it's going to be so much more involved. There's going to be crowd involved and everything. It's going to be such a fun time. We're working on like intros to walk in with. It's going to be a lot of unique things that people that are there only get the experience. But also, even if you cannot make it to the actual thing, you can't buy tickets because you're not going, you can also donate to the cause as well. So make sure you hit that link in the bio, in every description of every video that I've been doing for like the past couple of weeks. You can go donate or get tickets. Again, we're really close to selling out, so make sure you go ahead and right now. We're really close to selling out, so you may want to hurry up if you plan on pulling up. And like I already said, man, it's gonna be my first time meeting any of the other 3 Commanders Kings in person, Louis T and Oliver Rio Robinson, so this is gonna be a really special moment. So make sure y'all pull up for that. You don't want to miss out. And without further ado, let's go and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. And before we get into everything, man, like I say, when y'all donate, the very least I could do is to shout you out and thank you in my very next video, especially when y'all donate and it's not even necessarily during the stream. So shouts out to Andrew Campbell. He said, shouts out to my Washington nation from Lubbock, Texas. And I believe he did donate this during the actual Patriots game live stream, but I may have just missed it. But either way, if I didn't thank him in that live stream, I'll make sure I thank him in the video just in case. If I ended up thanking you twice, hey, it is what it is. I just want to make sure for a fact I thanked you. So thank you, Andrew Campbell, for that big time donation to the Cash App. And then just a few days ago, my boy Billy donated to the Cash App as well. He said, big fan, need to meet at the Atlanta game, man. First of all, appreciate that. And yes, sir, appreciate that donation as well. And then the biggest donation of all, shouts out to Mr. Simpson for the huge donation, man. So thank all of y'all again. I know I'm taking time away from the video, but I feel like the very least I can do is thank you in my very next video after y'all donate. That's the least I can do. And so if you want to donate and you want to get a shout out, that's the easy way to do it. Especially if you want to send a message, I'll say it on the screen and everything like I just did just now. But now to dive into everything that went down yesterday as far as the guys we tried out and signed. Well, first of all, the Washington Commanders released Michael Strachan, the wide receiver, to sign another wide receiver, River Craycraft. I have absolutely, honestly, no idea how to pronounce that last name. It's C-R-A-C-R-A-F-T. Craycraft. We're just gonna call him River for the rest of this video, man. I'm gonna keep it at there, man. River CC, honestly. And because Michael Strachan got cut so that we can make room for River, he's replacing him as the number 84 on this team. So River is taking Mike's 84 jersey number immediately. I mean, you could already see it on the screen right now with him already going through practices yesterday, as in Thursday, August 14th, in that practice bubble. You can already see him trying to get caught up to speed. Of course, since he just got here, you know, it's not very likely that he make this final 53-man roster. I'm not even about to sit here and clickbait y'all and act like he is, like until the very end or something like that. I'm gonna let you know off rip before we even dive into who this guy is and where he came from. That is not very likely that he's going to make the final 53-man roster, but the fact that he's here does tell you that it's not impossible. Now, here's the list of all of the guys that worked out for the Commanders in the bubble yesterday, again, Thursday, August 14th. You have River, the wide receiver from Washington State. You have George Fant, the tackle from Western Kentucky. We're going to talk about him the second half of the video, along with tackle Cameron Fleming from Stanford. We're going to talk about him in the second half of the video. He's going to be the very last guy that we talk about. George Fant is going to be the third, and we have that ball hawk and DB that's going to be in the middle. You also have Xavier Henderson, a wide receiver from Cincinnati. You have quarterback Jordan McLeod from Texas State. I thought that was interesting that we worked out a quarterback. Like, what does that mean for how bad Sam Hartman and Josh Johnson both looked in that preseason game against the Patriots backups? Maybe there's something there. I don't know. Then you have Makai Polk as well, wide receiver from Mississippi State. And then you have Cody Thompson out of Toledo. And it's crazy, too, because one of the guys that we signed was not part of this workout. So they just went and scouted him and signed him immediately. They didn't even need to work him out. That's going to be the second guy we talk about. But going back to our boy River. And this signing is really interesting because we already signed Tay Martin and Braylon Sanders since training camp practices have started. Both of them happen to be DC defenders as well, but that's not even including any receivers that we signed in free agency before training camp, like back in March, all the way up till mid-July training camp. So I'm talking about mandatory mini camps. I'm talking about voluntary OTAs. That doesn't count any of those. Those are just purely the training camp guys. We already have Tay Martin, Braylon Sanders, and now River. I mean, we're not talking about even drafting Jalen Lane. We're not talking about even trading for Deebo Samuel and signing several undrafted free agent wide receivers immediately after the draft, like Ja'Cory Brooks. So this organization has had a lot of wide receiver movement. They've been very active at trying to give a lot of people opportunities to show what they can do in this wide receiver room. So you can never say that they're not trying and looking everywhere to find some receiver depth or talent to add to this roster. I mean, since training camp started, we haven't even gone an entire week without signing a new receiver. Like, every week it's somebody. It was Tay Martin, then it was Braylon Sanders, and now it's River C. And even beyond that, and it's not just because Terry McLaurin is holding in and Noah Brown is hurt. I feel like we should, and they would be proactive looking for a receiver depth, even if both of those guys were here and healthy. Because we also have like this wide receiver depth issues as far as like dependable talent. Even again, if Terry and Noah Brown were here and healthy, we'd still be looking for like a definitive, dependable sixth receiver that like we are confident can make this roster and play on Sundays immediately. Like with Terry and Noah Brown basically out, we got to the point where Deebo Samuel and Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey were your starting wide receivers in that scrimmage we had a couple of days ago. And at this point so far in the offseason, especially since training camp started, Deebo Samuel and Jalen Lane are really your only like dependable receivers for Jaden Daniels to even throw to in practices. And even Jalen Lane has had occasional rookie mistakes. He's looked like a rookie at times. Really, Deebo Samuel has been by far the best and most consistent wide receiver on this roster. And you kind of expect that, but at the same time, it's not good. And that's why you miss Terry and Noah Brown out there. I mean, we have Ja'Cory Brooks, who has been making big plays quite often, but he also has really costly drops out of nowhere. Like, his problem is consistency. Like, he makes these tough one-handed catches for touchdowns and then drops an open pass for no reason. So thank goodness he had no drop issues in that preseason game against the Patriots. Maybe he's improving in that way, but either way, we need better competition for that sixth final 53-man roster wide receiver spot going into the regular season. Your locks, well, I'm not even sure if they're 100% locks, but as close as the locks can get. I mean, Terry, Deebo, Jalen Lane automatically, but Noah Brown being injured and Luke McCaffrey not stepping up to the plate as well as I hoped he'd do at this point, I'm considering them both locks. But they're definitely looser locks, you know what I'm saying? That's an easy lock pick lock right there. I don't know. But those are pretty much your five guys that I would bet money are going to make this final 53-man roster going into week one. There's only one wide receiver spot left for everybody else that's competing, but there's nobody that's really standing out of the rest. And again, Ja'Cory Brooks is really, so far this offseason, especially this training camp, been even outplaying Luke McCaffrey. So really, those last two spots are pretty questionable. And even Jalen Lane, again, he's been making plays and he's been fairly consistent, but he's he's had those moments. So for him to be the fourth guy, and we're still worried about Noah Brown's health and Terry McLaurin's contract, it's not a pretty situation. So we need to be looking for talent left and right, pretty much holding tryouts every day for a random receiver to come in. Why not? And so not only did they go and sign a receiver, but again, they also had several guys try out. So you can tell that this team is tired of the back end receiver talent, because this is the third wave of wide receiver trials we've had, and them signing a guy from that wave. Now going to River. Who is River? Well, first of all, shouts out to Ed Oliver, because he was the one that reminded me that this is a guy that's made plays against us in the preseason before last year. He tweeted, "The league done messed up and let us get this demon." Because if you don't forget that he was the guy that cooked Benjamin St-Juste for a big time touchdown in the preseason last year, when we were like, how is Benjamin St-Juste getting beat by backup of the backup of the backup receivers, like guys that may not even necessarily make the final 53-man roster for the Dolphins? You're getting beat by those guys for touchdowns in the preseason. So we kind of already got a clue and like a warning as to how that season was going to go coverage wise for this entire team, let alone Benjamin St-Juste, off of the fact that a backup of a backup wide receiver beat him in the preseason game. But that's that guy. This is the River guy that beat Benjamin St-Juste that we just signed. And even back on August 17th of 2024, We Won Dallas even tweeted, Benjamin St-Juste got beat one-on-one for a touchdown by a Dolphins wide receiver, River, a 29-year-old journeyman with 25 career catches in the NFL. And it was just like a stressed meme, like, come on, dog. Basically, buckle up for the coverage that we're going to see throughout the season. And then it pretty much ended up being as bad as we thought. Now, shouts out to Resh Manuel. He brings up a great point. He has a strong connection to Welker, because with the recent signings of both Braylon Sanders and River, the Commanders now have signed 2 veteran wide receivers with strong ties and support from the new coach and personnel assistant, Wes Welker. So basically, shouts out to Adam Peters. He's done this as far as offensive linemen, you know, kind of talking to the offensive lines coach like Bobby Johnson. What do you recommend? Or even Anthony Lynn is the run game coordinator. And so same thing goes for really every position group on the team. He's not just only talking to Dan Quinn or maybe Cliff Kingsbury on the offense side or Joey Jr. on the defensive side. He's even talking to positional coaches, or even a Wes Welker who's not even a full-blown positional coach. He's the coaching personnel assistant. But the fact that he just brought in, within the past couple of weeks, 2 guys that clearly were brought in here because of their connection to Wes Welker. I'm pretty sure Wes Welker said, hey man, we're looking for receivers. I know 2 guys that can compete and maybe have a chance to, you know, they can get on this roster and at least give you some strong practice ability. Even if they're not going to make the final 53-man roster, they can at least provide enough talent to give you some good practice against some of your backup DBs and stuff like that. At the worst, they could be good practice squad guys or rotational pieces or whatever. Maybe they'll compete. But again, the fact that Adam Peters is even taking recommendations from Wes Welker, again, who's not even a positional coach. I love the fact that Adam Peters kind of takes in insight. He takes his ego out of things and takes in insight from anybody. Because, I mean, Adam Peters, I don't believe he has any really strong connection, especially to Braylon Sanders. I mean, he was on the DC Defenders, but that's as close as it gets. So that's clearly just a Wes Welker. You're a wide receiver guru. I mean, we need to find some wide receivers. Who do you recommend, type of thing? I love that from Adam Peters. I really do. I love the fact that we're so collaborative in this organization. Even though the final say, all decisions go through Adam Peters, at the end of the day, he's listening to everybody's opinions and insights and advice and stuff like that. And I love that. And so now, this guy, River, is 30 years old. He's had 32 career receptions over 7 seasons, so he's not like a very experienced guy. He's older, but he's not very experienced. He played 7 seasons and 53 games in the NFL with 3 different organizations. And he was in San Francisco during Adam Peters' tenure and spent last season with the Miami Dolphins, and he had 7 catches for 66 yards out of the entire season. So this is not just some super experienced guy. To just do a quick rundown, he wound up signing with the Broncos practice squad in 2017 as an undrafted free agent out of Washington State. He was released shortly after with an injury settlement, but returned at the end of the season to the practice squad. From there, River was on and off the Broncos practice squad before eventually signing with the Eagles in 2019. Philadelphia brought him back on a futures contract, but he eventually joined the 49ers, and that's the time that he spent with Adam Peters. River was on and off the 49ers roster before signing futures contracts with the Dolphins in February 2022, and then he was released coming out of the preseason and later signed to their practice squad before being promoted in September. And then that's when he ended up actually playing in games and getting a few catches. Then Miami signed him to a 1-year deal each of the last 2 offseasons. seasons. Then he signed with the Seahawks in March, but was let go by May. And we're talking about this offseason. And again, just to remind you, just last year, played in 8 games for the Dolphins, had 9 targets, 7 receptions, 66 yards, which is 13.4 yards per catch. That's not bad. That's pretty explosive, and he showed us all of his explosion in that preseason rep that he had against Benjamin St. Juste, where he mossed him for a touchdown. So maybe there's some potential here. Maybe there's something there. But I do want to remind you, just to kind of hope any hopes and expectations, he sounds like maybe he's an exciting guy, but this is also a guy that had a 4.62 40-yard dash as a wide receiver. As a 6-foot wide receiver that weighs less than 200 pounds, a 4.62 40-yard dash is not very good. So that's even crazier. You look at Benjamin St. Juste, even like, what? Even more like, what are you doing? This guy runs a 4.62, and then he mossed you. So, I mean, I don't want to talk down on the guy that we just signed in the back end of the roster, but like, I mean, that just goes to show how not ready Benjamin St. Juste was for this past season, really any season for us. And now it's funny because Chargers fans are starting to complain about him and compare him to Michael Davis. They didn't even know that we had both of them on our roster at the same time last year, and they were like, oh man, bless y'all hearts. But that's a whole nother rant. Shouts out to River, man. I hope he makes some noise on the back end of this roster. Again, I don't think I'm just going to keep it a thou out with y'all. I don't think it's likely at all that he makes his final 53-man roster. I'm not even sure if he has a real shot at even making the practice squad. There's a reason we just signed him August 15th, and there's a reason that he was even available for us to sign him. But hey, man, you never know. You get your foot in the door, he can go out there and make the most of his opportunities, and I'm rooting for him to do so. Now, moving on to the safety that we signed, and that was safety Daryl Worley. No, wait, that's my fault. He was one of 4 defensive backs that tried out for the Commanders yesterday, so he wasn't on anybody's list. But shouts out to Nicky Javala for letting everybody know that you had Daryl Worley work out, you had Quantrez Knight, you had Trey Rucker, and Jason Taylor. All of those defensive backs worked out for the Commanders, and he's the one that ended up getting picked out of all of them. So maybe there's something there. He was a 3rd round pick, 77th overall in the 2016 draft by the Panthers, coming out of West Virginia. So this is a talented guy. This is not just some random undrafted free agent. Like, shouts out to River, but he was an undrafted free agent that went straight to a practice squad his rookie season. This guy was a 3rd round pick, and he played 99 career games with 64 starts. With 7 different franchises, though. When you play for that many teams, it definitely does not like a great look. But at the same time, he has 64 starts in his career. Like, that's definitely something notable. He's coming with a certain level of experience and floor that at the defensive back position, River is not bringing. But these offensive tackles that we're going to talk about after Daryl, they come with similar levels of experience where they've played a lot. They've started a bunch of games as well. So River is the most raw. Even though he's 30 years old, he's the least experienced out of all of the 4 guys we're talking about in this video. Going back to Worley, he had 52 tackles, an interception, and a forced fumble in 9 games for the Titans last season. Just to let you know, the other teams that he played for, the Ravens, Lions, Raiders, Bills, Cowboys, and the Panthers. And again, the Panthers are the ones that actually drafted him. But I do want to remind y'all that, first of all, he's 30 years old. He's a 9-year vet. And again, he played 9 games last season with the Titans. But he was the one that when we played the Titans in week 13 last season, he had 17 tackles against us in that one game. I really want to emphasize that. This guy had 17 tackles against you in that Tennessee Titans game just last year when we played them. We whooped them. I mean, his 17 tackles didn't really mean much, but 17 tackles in one game for any player, let alone a defensive back, is insane. That's why we whooped them. A defensive back should never have that many tackles in a game. That either means, you know, first of all, run game wise, your D-line and your linebackers aren't doing a good enough job. And then also, even on him, if you're getting that many tackles, that means you're also allowing a bunch of receptions against you, which is not necessarily a good thing. And then you even had like this one, I think it was a Ravens fan at one point that was like, after they signed Daryl Worley back in 2022, he was sad. He did like a whole crying meme about the fact that he was going to have to go against T. Higgins on prime time very soon. I thought that was hilarious. But, I mean, it ended up working out fairly well. He's not a bad player. He's not a great player either. This is also somebody that I feel like he has a better shot at making this final 53-man roster than River does at wide receiver. But I'm not expecting this guy to come in. Anybody that we sign in the middle of training camp, unless it's just this big name, I'm not really expecting that guy to have a great chance of making the roster. It's not impossible. Again, once you have your foot in the door, you never know. And again, the fact that Daryl Worley comes in with way more experience, not only just game experience, but starting experience as well. I mean, that guy had 17 tackles. That guy had more tackles in one game against us last year than River had catches all last season. Like, that is crazy if you really think about it like that. So Daryl Worley, I'm not saying it's very likely he makes the roster, but especially with like River trying to compete for like that 6th spot, like against like 7 to 8 other wide receivers right now versus Daryl Worley. I mean, back into the roster, you have Jeremy Reeves and Percy Butler, who are special teams guys, but as far as playable guys on Sundays, now granted, Jeremy Reeves, I've heard good things about him this offseason. John Comm even said, hey man, one guy that's going to be playing this season that normally doesn't is Jeremy Reeves, outside of special teams. He's going to be playing on defense. And then Tyler Owens, when healthy, has shown a lot of flashes in that secondary as well. But there may be like that 1/5 spot left. If they keep 5 safeties, maybe Daryl Worley has a chance to make that spot right there. We'll see. I don't think it's likely. I'm not trying to sell y'all on any dreams or anything like that, but hey man, anything's possible once you have your foot in the door. Now moving on to the 2 offensive tackles that we tried out. Don't be surprised if we sign one of these very soon. The Commanders worked out offensive tackles George Fant and Cam Fleming earlier yesterday. Washington is missing a few bodies on the offensive line, which is very true. Brandon Coleman still remains sidelined with an undisclosed lower body injury. We don't even know if it's a leg. We don't know anything, just lower body. That's all we got. Samuel Cosme still recovering from an ACL surgery, is definitely at least several weeks from returning at best. And don't forget that we brought in Lucas Niang like 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, and then he just tore his ACL against the Patriots in that preseason game. So we're losing a lot of depth, and even just starters. Like, offensive linemen are banged up right now for this team. And even Nate Herbig retired as a backup interior offensive lineman just out of nowhere like a couple of weeks ago. So we definitely have some depth concerns here, so why not bring in these guys to at least compete and work out? And so the Commanders have hosted offensive tackle George Fant for a visit. Both sides plan to remain in contact moving forward, so maybe he had a good enough, it wasn't good enough for them to sign him immediately, but it was good enough for them to be like, okay, we'll keep in contact because we may bring you in, especially maybe after this Bengals preseason game, once we get to this Ravens preseason game where we play a lot of backups, because this Bengals preseason game, we're actually going to play our starters for a pretty significant amount of time. But when we go against the Ravens, we just need bodies to go out there and play. You know what I'm saying? Because we're going to rest so many starters. We're going to probably rest like 30 to 40 something of people on our roster. It's only 91 people on the roster. We need to have enough people to actually go out there and play against the Ravens. I know it's backups and this guy's fighting at the back end of the roster to make the team, but we still need guys to go out there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we sign George Fant or even Cam Fleming. We'll talk about him next after the Bengals preseason game. But for now, we don't necessarily need these guys. We're going out there with starters. Laramie Tunsil and Josh Connolly are healthy right now, left tackle and right tackle. So we don't need this guy yet, but we'll see. I mean, he has 75 career starts, and he also just visited the Buccaneers as well. So he's been kind of going on like a workout tour, and I wouldn't be surprised if somebody signs him before the season actually starts. He worked out with the Buccaneers, Cowboys, and the Ravens earlier this offseason. He's 33 years old. He signed on with the Seahawks as an undrafted free agent out of Western Kentucky back in 2016, but unlike River, he's actually stepped up into a starting role throughout his career. He finished a 3-year rookie contract before the Seahawks used a second-round restricted tender on him worth $3 million for the 2019 season. As an unrestricted free agent in 2020, Fant signed a 3-year, $27.3 million deal with the Jets. He then became a free agent again in 2023, signing with the Texans on a 1-year deal. And then the Seahawks signed Fant to a 1-year contract last offseason, so he was not a part of that terrible Texans offensive line last year like Laramie Tunsil was. And in 2024, most recently, Fant appeared in 2 games for the Seahawks, but he's played in 101 games total as a veteran in this league. Again, 75 of them starts. Like, this is not just some Joe Schmo random guy off the street. I think he has far better experience. He's played at a higher level than even the previous 2 guys we've talked about in Daryl at DB and River at wide receiver. I mean, but he could nevertheless offer plenty of experience at either tackle position as a first-team option or even a high-floor backup. You know, maybe like a lower tier starter, but he's definitely a pretty high tier backup if you want to go that route. Now, granted, we have Andrew Wiley, who's technically your backup swing tackle right now, but because of the Brandon Coleman injury and Samuel Cosme's already hurt at right guard, Nick Allegretti's having to start at right guard. Andrew Wiley has had to move from starting right tackle to starting left guard now that Brandon Coleman's hurt. So your backup swing tackle is now your starting left guard. So maybe we do need a backup swing tackle if Brandon Coleman's injury is that bad. If we sign George Fant or even Cam Fleming, again, who we're going to talk about next, maybe that is a sign that the Brandon Coleman injury may be a little bit worse than Dan Quinn is letting on. But this guy has over 2,000 snaps on each side. We're talking about left tackle or right tackle. That is like as good as it gets when it comes to a backup swing tackle. I like Andrew Wiley, but I'm very uncomfortable with the thought of Andrew Wiley having to start a left tackle for you. And if anything, if we have an injury to like Laramie Tunsil, knock on wood, of course, I'd honestly prefer Josh Connolly, even as a rookie, to go over there at left tackle, and then we just make it work with Andrew Wiley at right tackle, or maybe George Fant can step in at that point, but I prefer Josh Connolly over both George Fant and Andrew Wiley if we had to play somebody at left tackle. And then shouts out to Greg Allman, he brought up a good point, and this was earlier in the offseason after George Fant worked out for the Buccaneers. He seems to be a big fan of him. He said George Fant would give the Bucs a much more experienced option as a short-term replacement for Tristan Wirfs at the start of the season as opposed to any other tackle they currently have on the roster. So the Buccaneers are looking at this guy like, hey man, he could come start at left tackle for us right now until Tristan Wirfs is okay, because he's better than anybody we currently have on roster. So I'm surprised that he's still available out there. And even just Pro Football Focus wise, his best grades were a 74 overall grade in 2018 and a 71.1 overall grade in 2021. But these last two seasons, 63.5, 61.3, those are not bad at all. That's very serviceable. That's a guy that could come in and step in case of an injury and at least hold it down, hold the fort down. Nothing crazy will happen. You're not expecting your quarterback to just get blitzed and obliterated all day if a guy like George Fant has to step in for you. Now moving on to the fourth guy. The Commanders also worked out veteran offensive tackle Cam Fleming yesterday, as in Thursday, August 14th. No signing yet, but the sides plan to remain in touch moving forward, just like with George Fant. So the Commanders are like, hey, we like those workouts from the two of y'all. We'll stay in touch because if in case we need y'all, we will call y'all. And also, he previously worked out with the Chargers recently as well. So these offensive tackles are kind of making their rounds around the NFL, working out for people, and we've worked out two of them. So that shows how much we're looking at offensive tackle talent right now. Fleming, who's 1 year younger than George Fant, he's 32. He spent the last 4 seasons with the Broncos. He started 15 games in 2022. So this is a guy just a couple of years ago started 15 games in the NFL as a tackle, but only played 7 games with 1 start over the last 2 seasons. So that's the concern right there. A New England 4th round pick back in 2014, Fleming has appeared in 118 games with 62 starts for the Patriots, Cowboys, Giants, and the Broncos. And again, he also worked out recently for the Los Angeles Chargers, especially since Rashawn Slater recently went down with a season-ending injury in training camp. So people out there are having injuries to their offensive tackles, and they're taking a look at guys like George Fant and Cam Fleming. I'm surprised that neither of them have signed to either of those teams, Tristan Wirfs and Rashawn Slater going down. But Rashawn Slater's situation is way more serious. He's out for season, so who knows how that's going to go. And then even just Pro Football Focus grade-wise, I mean, his have been even more impressive than George Fant's, even though personally, eye test wise, watching the film and stuff like that, from what I've seen, I prefer George Fant between these two if we had to sign one, especially since the fact that Cam Fleming didn't play in 2024 at all, and he didn't even play a lot of snaps in 2023. Like in a regular season where he started, he had 976 snaps. In comparison, in 2023, he only had 126 snaps total the entire season, so he didn't even play a lot that year, and then he didn't play at all in 2024. But Pro Football Focus grade wise, as a rookie, he was a 64.7. Couple of years later in 2016, 71.9, 2017, 71.8. Then he had a couple of down years in between. 2021, a 71.7, 2022, a 72.6. Now, of course, take all of these Pro Football Focus grades always with a grain of salt, but that just goes to show that this guy isn't like terrible. You could do worse than a Cam Fleming or a George Fant in case there's an injury. So these are both guys that we just have on speed dial right now. Hopefully nothing happens. I guess I will technically take it as a good sign if we don't sign either of these guys, because that sounds like Laramie Tunsil and Josh Connolly, of course, both healthy. Everybody who's currently healthy stays healthy. And then maybe Brandon Coleman returns to start at left guard, and now you have Andrew Wiley as your backup swing tackle. But again, I'm not going to lie. I like Andrew Wiley at right tackle more than most of the fan base, but I'm very uncomfortable with him having to ever step in at left tackle. I would easily prefer George Fant or Cam Fleming to step in at left tackle over an Andrew Wiley. Right tackle, cool. Left tackle, very uncomfortable with that. So definitely keep these guys in the back pocket in case anything were ever to happen. But I'm just hoping nothing ever does. These are talented tackles. I'm just hoping we don't get into a situation where we need to bring them in. Like when it comes to the receiver that we signed, River, or even the safety that we signed in Daryl, that's more so because we're trying to bring in competition because we're not so sure about the depth we have behind the starters. These guys, if we bring them in, that's purely because of injuries. Because on paper, we have a really good and really deep offensive line. We would only bring either of these tackles in due to injury. Whereas River and Daryl, they're just trying to help, bring more talent to the roster. These guys are purely injury replacement. So it's technically a good sign if we don't sign them. But at the end of the day, these two guys are better at tackle than I would say Daryl is at safety, even though 17 tackles in one game is insane. And then River is at wide receiver. Out of the four guys we talked about today, River is probably the least good. I feel like George Fant is probably the best out of the four, but I don't think there's a huge gap in between them. But George Fant and Cam Fleming are definitely the two best players we've talked about in this video. But again, crazy part is, the only reason we would ever have to bring them in is a bad sign that somebody got hurt on this offensive line. But yeah, man, that's it in this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you have everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video. If you made it this far in the video about two random guys that tried out, two random guys that have no real honest shot at making the final 53-man roster, salute to you, thank you, appreciate you. Leave a like on the way out, and of course let me know in the comment section how you feel about these four players, about the River wide receiver, about the Daryl DB, and the two offensive tackles in George Fant and Cam Fleming. Let me know how y'all feel about any of these guys. Do you feel like any of these guys have a chance to make the roster if we end up signing either of the tackles? Is that a good sign or a bad sign? Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. I really appreciate y'all. Leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.